All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Business Strategy Roundtable. Today, we're welcoming Brad Fraser from Infoprotect. Thank you for being here, Brad.
Pleasure, Zach. Always great to talk to you.
Likewise. Brad has a pretty tremendous career and entrepreneurial journey in the world in the UK and some in South Africa. Brad, I'm excited to learn more from you. Do you mind if I do our little icebreaker?
Absolutely. Let's crack on.
All right. So we're going to get a UK take on a United States problem. And that United States problem is that, and if I butcher the statistic, forgive me, public, but it's something like, I believe, 82% of schools in the United States from K through college have experienced some kind of regular cyber incident or attack. I have some opinions on why we're not effectively solving this. I have two schools of thought, but I would love to get your opinion as somebody that plays in this space a lot and knows what needs to be done and knows the motivations for getting it done. Why is it not getting done? Why are we not figuring it out?
Zach, I think that's an excellent question, but it's got a multifaceted answer from what I've seen. So I got into cybersecurity as a focus point about 15 years ago, when antivirus was just coming on the scene, and no one wanted to buy antivirus because there weren't a lot of viruses, but they didn't think it was necessary. So picture that same scene and then fast forward it. You've got all these businesses, and schools are businesses, make no mistake. And the challenge is where do they put their money? Do they put it on making the school and the education better? Or do they put it on RT protection, if you can call it that? And the typical take of a budget like that in a school that normally doesn't have a lot of funds to deploy is we'll do the most important things first that they think of. And cybersecurity is at the bottom of the list, purely because it's that attitude of, well, it's not going to happen to us. We're too small. Who's going to attack a school from a cyber perspective? But nothing can be further from the truth. So it's around, and that comes to lack of knowledge. We're not getting the story out as an industry, if I can call it that, that steers away from the fear concept and goes back to, look, this is just good common sense as to how you should act in a business. So whether it's a school or not,
Right.
They don't have the correct focus. Put it plainly, I think that's what
I think you're probably right. It drives me crazy on my side because it seems like you have to protect in any society. You have to protect the least capable of protecting themselves. And that's children, it's the disabled, it's the elderly, those types of communities. You have to have systems in place to make sure that they're properly taken care of. It seems like allowing regular interference, whether it be from foreign actors or from internal actors, to either be getting really private. I mean, a school has medical information, psychological information. You've got a therapist there. You've got really serious behavioral information that's collected. And then like your intellectual capacity is that's important, And
Yeah.
are we moving into a world where it's like draft selection on Madden, where people are like looking at kids way early on and starting to like either be pricing, their future career pathways or whatever else, and is that sharing of that data, like, are we not thinking more critically about how giving that information away could really negatively affect those people? I mean, we already live in a world where people can be super target marketed to. Now, imagine an 8-year-old that doesn't understand marketing or a world before cell phones or a world before everybody knew everything about you. It's really hard then to, I think, to make your own decisions and have agency in the decision making process with, well, what do I like, or what am I, predispositions to want to engage with, or whatever I'm good at. And I think we're really, in my opinion, in the States, and this is a stat based in the States, I think we are missing what is something like a super, super important thing that we need to be protecting. And I think we're just, to your point, it's like phoom, way over our heads.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of me wonder. Go ahead.
I mean, the minute you've got access to the internet,
Yeah,
that's when trouble starts. So, I know from a lot of smaller clients and in the education sector and that area, a lot of clients say, well, as I said, we're small and we don't really use IT a lot. And the minute all the good things that you've spoken about are accessible through the internet and to the internet. So the minute someone starts Googling something and going into a search engine and looking for information, they're exposing themselves. I mean, you go and start looking for cat food, for example, on Google, and suddenly you're getting all these ads start pitching up around where to go and get your cat food from, and making you all these offers. Now, the problem is, I think a large portion of society doesn't understand how that works. I speak to people and they go, well, I Googled it and it gave me this answer. And I said, yeah, it gives you the answer you're looking for because it reads what you want. You want to know about something in a positive light, you're going to get it in a positive light. If you look for that same information, but on the contrary to on a negative light, you're going to get information on a negative light. And people generally don't understand that. They don't understand how powerful those engines are, those search engines are, and where all your data goes. And and then don't get me started on AI. But I mean, it's because then the danger is exponentially greater.
So, and the amount of information that's shared is exponentially greater, because you go to Google for like, well, what was this? Where do I go for this? Or what was the sports score? And you can kind of get some like, oh, he's a Steelers fan. Oh, he needs to go to Lowe's. But you get into AI and you're like, all right, this is exactly the situation that's happening with my family member. Am I the asshole? And you get, you know what I mean? And you start getting a lot more detailed information. You know what I mean? Like, this is exactly what's going on with my car. Not just I need to go to Lowe's. You know what I mean? Now it's like, and it's, to your point, it's exponentially.
So, but it's exactly that type of thing. So picture anyone can get that type of information. What's stopping them getting that information about data in the school? I mean, it's available. It's going to be available, and there's information that's being gleaned out of these databases that, once again, people have got no idea what they're actually releasing into the public domain. No idea.
So you don't think it's a cost thing? You don't think that it's a greed? You don't think it's a not attributing where it needs to be, or service providers not offering up solutions to these? You don't think it's something like that? Do you think it's more of an ignorance-based issue?
It once again is multifaceted. It's a
combination of, yeah.
I mean, I had a coffee meeting with a mate of mine this morning, and he's a small MSP. He's got maybe 6 clients. Largest client's got 30 people. He deals with mom and pop type stores. And to try and convince them to be proactive around just their IT provision. We're not even talking security. We're not even talking firewalls, antivirus, all the good cybersecurity type stuff.
Right.
Just talking about, you need to have the right version of Windows, you need to have the right patches, and you need to, you need to make sure that you can be supported, so that if your laptop or your PC dies, you are able to carry on working because you've got a backup plan. Most of those mom and pop stores are the view, and the schools will be like that as well.
Yeah.
It breaks, we wait till it breaks, then we'll fix it.
Right.
And I think that's the mentality out there, because it is so easy to fix it, and quite quickly. You can go down to Walmart and get a laptop in minutes. I mean, you can get Amazon to deliver it to you in a couple of hours. So why must I be prepared for that stuff? I can go down, while I'm having a cup of coffee, my system's been up and running again. But it takes away the fact that you've got to proactively manage these situations. So whether it's making sure all the kids at school are aware of the social stories and what have you, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's TikTok or whatever it is,
That's a good
that
point.
they're aware of that as well. And I think that's where I get concerned in the school area, that if the school itself doesn't know what they should be doing,
They
how
can't
on
guide.
earth are they gonna tell the kids
Yeah.
what to do and how to be digitally aware? I mean, the kids are I mean, they know how to use everything way before adults do, but they're not aware of the dangers of it.
I would love to jump in here. That's an amazing point. It's like people like you and me, and I'm just kind of on the cusp because cell phones kind of became ubiquitous when I was in middle school. So there was a stretch of time where I was running around, and but I was young and I couldn't get into too much chaos. You know what I mean? What I'm hearing you kind of describe is it's almost like kids today can understand technology from inside of the box of the technology. So having the stories told to them of like, well, these type of social engineering things happen. This is what your data is used for. This is how things can be manipulated. Helps them exist within the space they're in. But there's a subset of people, and that's going to ultimately dwindle as time goes on, that can look at the box and see, well, this is what's happening because of technology and internet that's different from how it was. And I almost think, yes, we need to figure out a way to help them understand like the agency they have. But I wonder, like, there must be some kind of market for like complete like unplug retreats so that people can kind of like see what it was like before, and be able to kind of conceptualize the amount of agency that you have with your privacy and stuff, because young people today don't know about privacy. I don't feel like, maybe I'm wrong.
I think it's just not young people. It's a lot of people don't understand the whole privacy issue, and only when it happens to them, or they know of someone that has happened to them, do they start possibly reacting and start investigating and start asking questions. I don't want that to happen to me. So what do I do to protect myself? And and that goes on to that other point you brought up, Zach, is, are the service providers, whether once again it's a one-man band or a decent MSP,
Yeah.
are they getting the message across correctly to their clients? Are they insisting that they have the various controls in place, or are they just going, well, I'm just going to provide you a laptop and a screen and a printer and access to the internet, and off you go.
Right.
And they're not explaining the other issues that need to be taken care of. Whether it's web protection, email protection, what do you look for? All those kind of training things that to you and I are just normal because we do it and we put it into our daily lives. like MFA or things like that,
Yeah.
which is a pain. Sure, you've got to go to your authenticator and what have you, but they're there for a very good reason. And once you get into that habit, then there isn't there. It just becomes natural. So it brings me just to think about something that antivirus in the old days, if I call it, sort of 15 years ago, did interfere with the way a computer would work. It sometimes would slow it down if it wasn't set up properly. There was lack of knowledge from the IT side, and that frustrated the user because they did not want to be stopped in the use of their device. So
Yeah.
if a patch update popped up and said, you've got an update, would you like to install it now, in an hour's time, later, or tonight, or tomorrow? Predominantly, everyone would go, later or tomorrow. Whatever. I've never heard of one person that would go, oh, I need to do that right now. I need to update that patch right now. Because why? Once again, they're busy. They're doing things. They're on email. They're on accounting systems. They may be enrolling kids into school. They're doing all these things, and next minute, these pop-ups are coming up, and they go, I can't stop to do that. So I'm going to leave it. And then what happens? It goes away. They think, well, I'm safe now. Machine's not screaming at me anymore, not telling me to do anything. And then they forget it. They think, well, out of sight, out of mind, off we go. Then it'll come up again the following day or comes up in a week's time if the settings are wrong. And what happens? They go, oh, I'm busy now. I'm busy. I'll do it later when I'm having some coffee or I'm on a break or something like that. I'll do it then. But they never do it. It never becomes an issue. So once again, is that message getting across? Are we in that digital secure habit of doing all the things that are necessary to protect ourselves, knowing that if we proactively doing something, we're not going to have to go into reactive mode when something breaks or we get attacked or suddenly systems go down. I mean, I put it to our clients going, what would you do if you couldn't use your device, your laptop, your phone, your iPad, or whatever the case is? And they typically go, well, I would have to stop living almost because that device is so important to me. And then I said, well, let's protect that device so that you never have to worry about having it turned off without your sanction.
Right.
Kind of gets through to some people, and that's the knowledge factor, and is it underpinned by MSPs enough? I don't know.
That's
when I was going to my MSP 15 years ago, did we push that? No. 10 years ago, yeah, we started to get more forceful about it. Now, and sort of from 5-6 years ago, here's our parameters for how we take a client on. Mr. or Mrs. Client, unless you have these set up in your organization, we can't afford to take you on as a client. And I've had lots of clients turn to me and go, so you're turning down business? I'm going, no, I'm turning down bad business. I will never turn away good business, but I'm going to turn away bad business because as an MSP, I don't want a client coming back to me and going, not only didn't you tell me about this, you didn't protect me enough about it. My backup server failed because you didn't beat my head against the wall hard enough to tell me I had to buy a new backup server. So when it failed, who are they going to turn to? They come to the MSP and they go, you're at fault.
Right.
So not only do we want some money from you, we're actually going to take your money and then we're going to fire you.
And then you lose that reputation as well, which is the most important thing, which is you can't be, well, these, all the reviews, these guys were supposed to be my X, Y, and Z, and this happened. It's like, that's damning.
They all forget that you had told them that. You had reminded it, so.
Yeah, it's like the pizza customer that's like, hey, this is going to be an hour and a half, and then it gets there an hour and a half. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Brad,
And it's exactly that. So you got to put things in writing. You've got to make sure, these are our responsibilities, client, school, whatever, these are your responsibilities. And you need to do these things, because if you don't, we can't do these things. And if you're not prepared to do these things, we can't do these things. So
we
therefore,
won't hold it.
we walk away.
Brad, thank you so much for doing that. The ice is freaking broken, and I think we've gotten to get a little bit into the controls conversation. I'm gonna rope us and pull us back just a little bit, and share your journey with us. You have you've experienced much of what's to offer from the cybersecurity and from the MSP world. And before we get too much further into the controls and then the insurance conversation, I want to make sure that we've kind of painted that picture of your expertise for the current and future audience. So tell us a little bit about how your career began and what brought you into entrepreneurship, and feel free to start wherever, and I'll hit you with the tangential questions.
Zach, you can't get me started on this, because it's now I say to my mates, that's a 10 beer story, because it's a long story. So I'm going to try and make it very, very quick. I realized at a relatively early age that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. What that meant, I don't know. I didn't know. There was no such word as entrepreneur at that particular stage. So, but I knew I wanted to own businesses. What type of businesses? They were virtually irrelevant. Other than that, I enjoyed the motor trade. I enjoyed motorsport, motorbikes, cars, that type of thing. So I was always riding motorbikes, driving cars, fixing them up and whatever. So my natural progression was I got into the motor trade, tire retreading businesses, gas stations, convenience stores that came with that, everything around that retail stage, LPG outlets, you name it. And then at about 39, I lost, not lost interest, but I was tired, because that's all I had been doing since my early 20s. I'd gone to university. I went to college. I got a degree, financial degree, and that was purely to understand business. So no one could steal my money, and I also then understood what good business was from a commercial aspect, legal aspect, and I had the technical knowledge in that motor trade. So come to 39, 1995, RT suddenly became so I started installing computers into my business, and I thought, well, this is quite an exciting thing, because it's changing the way we operate, away from the paper visions and so on. And that excited me. And then I stopped my entrepreneurial journey, and I got into an IT business. And of course, I'm just using it as a financial manager at that particular stage, because that's the only people that would employ me for, because I was kind of unemployable being a general manager. Everyone thought, this guy's just going to walk straight through us. Yeah. And I broke the computer a good number of times. Anyway, fast forward that, I stayed in the corporate world in RT for 15 years and learned everything about RT across the globe and from A to Z. So whether it was hardware, infrastructure, software, applications, development, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, it really didn't matter. And I wasn't technical at all, but I understood what that technology could deliver in the business. And that excited me. So I was always promoting that good technology could make your business work better. And then at 55, I had enough of it. I woke up and I said, I've had enough of the corporate world. I can't do this anymore. Too many regulations and an authority coming down from the head office, so to speak. You had to do it this way. You had to do it that way. Despite the business that I was running for them at the time, making a huge amount of money.
Right.
And so, of course, I get asked by my mates, well, what are you going to do? So I said, well, I want to do security. They go, oh, that's good. What kind of security? So I dreamt up the name Infoprotect, checked that no one else was using it.
Good name.
And then that was it. So, and we started with antivirus. So it was around Semantic in those days, Semantic antivirus, doing all the training, the implementation, making sure it was delivered well. And then it started to progress. We had some quite large clients who wanted more. And it's that typical entrepreneurial way of going about it. Well, we can give you that more. So I built a very successful MSP out of collaboration with numerous partners doing all the heavy lifting, and then Infoprotect running the relationships, running the management of the process and how it was delivered, and making sure that the clients at all stages got more and more innovation as and when they wanted. So chicken and chip suppliers, movie houses, all those types of things, very much in the retail space at that stage. But they had everything that they needed to make sure that they could, and I'll use an old Xerox statement, it was like, we help our customers do good work. And that was it. It was the whole thing. How could we make our customers they must always be on, they must always be protected, and they can do good work. And they use the correct technology to do that. And that's what we did. That's how we built that particular business.
If you had to identify one skill that, it didn't have to be one, but you know what I mean, that you applied in that, early 20s to 39, that stuck with you and was vital and important in that stage that you spent with the corporation, that still you lean on now, what would you say to future entrepreneurs or current, entrepreneurs? This is what you need to have in your arsenal, and you need to get it now. That's a skill.
Always add value. Always add value. And I don't know if you know that I'm a big fan of The Go-Giver, a book written by Bob Berg and John David Mann. And that's my go-to book. It's the 5 Laws of Success. And the first law of success is add value. Always give more value to your clients than you take in money, and make sure you do that. More importantly, ensure that the recipient of that value understands it. Understands that you're always doing that. You always want to do more, and you're not going, well, I need to charge you $1 for that. I need to charge you $100 for that. I need to charge you $1,000 for that. No, that doesn't exist. You need to have that always that feedback from your client, that your client is thanking you, will always thank you for what you do for them.
Because it's clear.
Many times I've turned around and said, but they pay me to do that job. And then the realization clicks in that, but wait, I'm giving, and the business is always giving a lot more, because that's just the way we do it. And we can tackle the money later. That was the less important part of it. And once again, if you get that right, your profit is going to flow from it. You mustn't focus on revenue and profit. Always focus on the value story. Always.
I love that. Well, I think that's a really good way to do some pieces of your entrepreneurial journey there succinctly, so that we have plenty of time to dive into the topic of the day. I hope you'll come back so that we could do another 30 minutes where I can explore more pieces of it. So today we've got how cyber controls impact cyber insurance. Brad, I think I don't know how much of what you're working on we're going to discuss today, right? But I know that you're doing a lot of different things. from some of the basics to some pretty innovative new things. I think I'll ask you just the most basic question to start. How do these two things relate to each other? And how should MSPs be approaching it at the highest level?
So, and this is my take on it, because insurers today, the carriers, as you would say in the States, have got, they go through different waves, as you know, they call it a hard market, then a soft market. So one minute they're charging huge premiums to give a little bit of cover. Next minute they're giving it away, the premiums drop, the cover goes up. And the rules change, you know, whether it's exceptions or whatever the case may be. And we've had to stay, well, this is what we've decided to do. We're going to stay true and firm on the way we approach cyber risk. And to understand what risks you've got in your business from a cyber point of view, whether it's or an IT point of view. So whether it's information technology risk or cyber security risk, or whatever you want to talk about in that frame, you've got to start with what is my current state, and that's where we've used the controls. But it's like filling in a proposal form when the insurers come to you and go, fill this form in and tell us what you're doing. Do you have MFA in place? Do you use, you know, passwords changed? Have you got staff training? Got all those good things in place. And those questionnaires and proposal forms are diverse. There must be thousands of different versions of them before they get to the underwriter, who then deciphers that based on a process that they use to then come out what their risk calculation is. But because they're all different, they've all got different views of what their risks are, what the risk of that particular client that they're going to insure is. And that's what makes it disturbing for me, is because they haven't started with a standard or a framework and understood what is involved in the business before they actually can then work out what type of risk that business is to them. And, you know, asking questions like, do you have MFA, have you got antivirus or EDR or one of the technologies? So it's very technology. The questions are very technology based. And as you and I know, Zach, cybersecurity is not about technology. Yes, there's a technology element, but it's not technology per se. And the controls, particularly the CIS controls, or whether it was NIST or one of the global frameworks, moves into that human side and starts breaking down and distilling what the problems could exist in that particular business. So, and then when you take that, the answer to those risk assessments based on the frameworks into the insurance world, suddenly the insurers look at it and go, oh, I understand this a lot better now. Because they're not just going, is it a yes, no? You've got MFA, yes, no. Are you backing up, yes, no? Are you testing your backups? You know, are you doing DR, or have you got a business continuity plan? Yes, no. It's a lot more than that now, because there are shades of gray within it. And it's not a yes, no question or answer. And that's where we've moved with the insurers and the brokers in the UK, where we are providing that extra knowledge before the broker goes to market, goes to the carrier or insurer underwriter and says, I've got this client I want you to look at insuring. We look at it from that control perspective, give the broker and the client cyber risk assessment that shows them as close to accurate as it is across all the controls, all the different safeguards, and a clear picture unfolds. Suddenly the client goes, oh, I never had that holistic view before. I didn't know, because they got their head buried in each part of the technology they need.
The box.
Email, exactly that.
They don't know enough about how it all works together to be able to see, like, oh, well, this protects this, and like the game Mousetrap, right? Like, oh, these things all work together to accomplish a whole goal. And if I don't do this piece of it, then the whole thing is useless.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying is the insurers were looking at it less from a system perspective and more from like lights, like bits on a wire. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, on all these things. When the reality is all these things combine to either be risky or not risky based on a number of different things related to the technology, not just the technology.
Yeah. But it's got two sides to it. So yes, we're doing a lot on the insurance side, but we're also doing it from the fact of client needs a governance, risk, and compliance program to make sure that they're looking at security, even if they don't take insurance, that they're looking at security from a good standpoint, from a starting point. So when they come out the blocks, they already know what their picture looks like. Then they can go, right, we can buy this technology and deploy it in this manner to look after this. This technology will fix that, but it needs to be managed and monitored in these particular ways, because if it's not, don't put the technology in. So going back to the clients that we take on, we say you need to have this technology as a standard so that we can then put the building blocks on top of that. Once I started to learn about the controls, and particularly the CIS controls, it gave me that perspective where I flipped it on its head and said, before we even look at this technology, before we even look at how we're going to solve the problem, let's look at what the questions are. How does this business operate? And that's where I've been fortunate. My entrepreneurial journey and my knowledge of business has enabled me to get my team to look at a client from, this is a business that's got to provide these functions to the consumer or to another business. So whether they're a B2C or B2B business, this is what the business needs to have to provide that good work. So to do that, they need to have these things in place. And what manages that? The controls. Because if you don't look at the controls, once again, this is just my opinion, how do you know what your starting point is? It's too diverse. You can look at all these different points. How do you join the dots? So the CIS controls, for example, 18 of them, with all the safeguards, and it can go right up to over 180 for larger enterprises, enables you to distill it and break it down into all those different facets. And the questions that you're asking yourself around asset inventory, for example, whether it's hardware or software or firewall security, they're questions that have been put together by top experts in those areas. And then the compliance becomes, well, I'm compliant with that, but it's not just a compliance, tick box. It's around, why do I need to be compliant with this? What will it do for me to make my business more effective if I follow that control and the safeguards in terms of that? Does that make sense?
Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. Looking forward to what is the value of executing instead of just checking the box? Like, what does this get for me in the future? And it's a great point, because security is one of those things that I talked about it recently there's an article that highlighted that SaaS products are like drastically the majority for vulnerabilities resulting in cyber attacks. And the reason that is because it costs money to make your product secure. But when you deliver your product, you don't feel the security. You know, you when you when you buy a banana, if it's going to give you food poisoning, you don't feel that it's safe or not safe in your hand. You know what I mean? You're not thinking like, oh, well, is this banana been X, Y, and Z? And the same thing is true with SaaS products. When you're going to get a SaaS product, you're not thinking like, well, have they done all of the things necessary to ensure you might be if you're educated, you know, but most of the time, small business owners aren't. They're like, I'm just trying to figure out how to get my thing to do the thing, you know? And for businesses that are trying to run SaaS companies, they're thinking, well, I'm trying to move as quickly as possible to be ahead of the market to win.
Yeah.
And putting in time, effort, and funding into something that isn't going to be felt at the time of purchase, it's a tough thing to do. Now, what you're describing is you have to be helping them understand what that seed is for the value in the future. And I think it's applicable from the managed service provider perspective. Hey, you're going to pay X, Y, and Z now, and we're going to do A, B, and C. And because of that, this is what the future looks like. I think the same needs to be true on the product side. To your point, right? This transparency and this communication of like, hey, we did X, Y, and Z. And because of that, this is what the future looks like with our product and tool. And I think that's where marketing differentiation is going to begin to really happen between these products and these companies in the cybersecurity space. And it all comes back to, in my opinion, what we started talking about, which is these folks need to be educated, whether it's small business owners, whether it's the IT service providers and how to have the conversations, whether it's the school officials on what they need to be doing, and whether it's the fucking government that needs to be stepping back, looking at the box like, oh, well, these two people don't understand enough about each other. We need to put some guidance there to kind of solve this problem. But it all comes back to an education and knowledge-based thing.
Exactly that. And also, you know, where we position Infoprotect now is in that high risk client area, that top 5% of clients above a certain revenue, because that's where we can really add some real value.
Clear and obvious.
And where the clients see the value.
Right.
So, you know, it gets back to the schools, gets back to the education areas. Do the schools see the value in what they need to do? No, they don't. No one's educated them, pardon the pun, but no one's educated them on what they need to know about. What we're doing is we're making it transparent so that everybody in the journey, from the client, the insurance broker, the carrier, and ourselves, we've all been totally transparent about what not only the questions are, what the answers are, what the problems are, we've got a known state, where do we need to move to with a decent investment, not overkill, the correct investment to get to the next stage, but to ensure that we've always got the basics covered. And if the basics aren't being covered, let's fix those quickly. Now, the controls allow that to happen.
I hear you describing we are looking at data so that we could do balanced business across all stakeholders. That's what I hear you saying. Well, we need to make sure that the people doing the insuring aren't getting taken to the cleaners, because then they're going to stop insuring. We need to make sure that the brokers are able to adequately they got to be able to sell however many deals a month so they could take their gal to the steakhouse and take their kids to the ball game or whatever. And then they got to make sure that the business is also not being taken to the cleaners. And what I hear you saying also is that the MSP can be for lack of a better word, the broker between the three. It's really not a good use of a word there, but can be the intermediary is a better choice of words in between those three parties and say, I understand the box stuff. And I also understand what you need and what you need and what you need. And let's do good business so that we all are able to take a little piece of the pie back to, our communities and families and have won.
Exactly that. And the important thing about it is we can't all do everything. So an MSP will take things to a level, and they're good at what they do in that particular level. It's the same as with I would put the MSP and an internal RT staff complement on the same basis, because the ones outsourced, so to speak, the ones are in-source type operation. How we then look at it is on a non-threatening basis. We would go to the MSP or go to the RT department and go, guys, let's talk about this. Let's understand where we are in this particular journey. Let's understand what you need to have from a governance, risk, and compliance. So it's around that. Then we'll go back to the MSP or the internal RT department and say, you need to do these things. Let's help you do those things. Let's first of all help you understand it. Then once we've got that picture, we then go to the insurer or the carrier and go, this is where we are, state today. This is the roadmap for improvement. How do you view this client from a risk perspective? It allows the insurer, underwriter, carrier to then view that risk in a proper way, and then form the basis of what their particular risk profile looks like. And they go, right, your premium is now $100,000. You're going to get $5 million cover.
It's like due diligence.
But
it's like natural.
Exactly. No, but it's. I think we're talking about the same thing, because you would look at it and go, as the client improves, because now we've got a roadmap, and the MSP is brought in to fix certain areas, not for want of trying, but now the client's got a driver. They've got a motivation, because they can get their costs down on the insurance premium, and get more of an understanding of what their risk level is like. And you can do all those things together. The insurer's happy as Larry, because the next year they come along to renewal, they go, well, we looked at it at this point, look at your roadmap, where are you now? Oh, you've met what you said you're going to meet.
And if there was a cyber incident, you have that information and you can adapt based on that. So Correct. Both parties are still happy. Keep going.
Correct. And then you look at the renewal status, and that's where we go with it and go, right, insurer, carrier, underwriter, this is where the risk is now. This is where we've gone. We've improved those controls we said we're going to look at, or the client's going to look at, and we're going to help them with it. We've got a GRC program in place. You've got all the things that are running with it. On a live basis, this is where we've got to. And the insurer looks at it and goes, this is great. We're going to give you the same cover, but we're going to drop the premium. And next year when you come along, the same game can take place, because everyone's aware of what's happening, and they're doing it to a good standard. They're doing it to a CIS framework, to a NIST framework, or whatever the case is, depending on the type of business. And so it's not hit and miss of the MSP or the RT department going, I think we need to do this. I think we need to put this bit of technology in because it's going to protect us here. And that whole thing was join the dots, where if you do that, will it mitigate the risk? Will it help? Or will it get us to a point where the client will say, I'm happy with that risk. So we are attacked, we know where our failure points could be, and we're going to prepare for that.
Right.
And therefore, that's why we got insurance. And the insurer goes, I'm happy with that. I'm happy to give you insurance because I know where the failure points could be.
So I know what my risk level is. I know what I need to charge you so that I'm prepared to pay out.
Exactly.
We're coming close to the end of the hour here, and what I want to do is I want to ask you one last question, and then I want you to have the opportunity to just share information about Infoprotect. The last question I want to wrap up with is, if it were to go wrong, if somebody were to not play their role properly, whether it be the insurer, the broker, or the small business in this equation, talk a little bit about what that looks like and how to identify and avoid it as a member of this equation. Maybe there's an insurer, maybe there's a broker, maybe there's a small business. Like, I don't want to get taken advantage of by brokers and insurers. And obviously, the safest way to approach it is reach out to Brad. But if that's not possible, how do these people kind of measure the equation to make sure that they're going in the direction they want?
It comes back to transparency. There isn't a simple answer, but once again, in my opinion, it would come back to the transparency factor around it. Insurance brokers, even if they're focusing on cyber, don't have all the answers, nor have the carriers. The client doesn't know everything because, once again, they're trying to run a business. They're a motor dealer, they're a pizza provider. They don't have all that knowledge. MSP, they've got part of the knowledge. They may be quite a high level MSP, and they've brought a big security flavor into their service offering. But it's really going to be, as the way we do it, is to get everyone on the same wavelength, around the same table, and as I said earlier, being transparent about everything. So a lot of our, particularly our larger clients, the first time we end the engagement, well, once they end the engagement, but we come to the first phase of it where we provide the cyber risk assessment, we will then have a meeting, whether it's a call or whatever the case may be, with the underwriter in question, with the broker in question, with the owner of the business, or at least the CIO or CISO, or someone in authority, someone in IT that knows the technical side of it, and a team member from Infoprotect. And we'll have that discussion around what does this all mean, so that there's no finger pointing, there's no blame passing, there's no, oh, well, I didn't say that, or it's his fault or her fault, or whatever the case may be. Everything's transparent and it's all out and open. There's no hidden parts or whatever the case is. And that's the easiest way to do it. And I've seen the results of it. It just works. And I'm talking obviously the larger high risk type clients. I'm not talking about your SMEs, or that can go and get cyber cover quite easily just by giving them their website address and answering a few little questions. I'm talking about clients that need proper cover, number one, and identify the fact that they do need insurance as part of their cyber resilience approach. Because we've got cybersecurity, and then we've got the resilience part of it. So how resilient is this client? Well, they're resilient because they've looked at cybersecurity on the right basis, and then they've put items in play, or they've put processes in play that help them to be resilient. So if something does go down, they've got an incident team they can grab hold of that the insurer provides. They've got an internal RT or incident team manager who takes responsibility. They've got an incident plan They've got a proper business continuity plan. They've got a proper disaster recovery plan. And those things are tested. So your insurance is your absolute last resort to cover those things if something happens, or the payout will happen. Because if something does happen, that's what the insurance is for, is to cover all your legal costs, your PR costs, your remediation items that have to be looked at. And there we go.
Awesome. Brad, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge, story, and expertise with us. Would you go ahead and tell people a little bit about how to either get a hold of you or get a hold of Infoprotect, or different things that folks could do with you if they were to want to?
Zach, thanks for that. Yeah, so Infoprotect UK, we a fully remote team. We're around the world, and we cover cyber risk management as our primary goal. We've moved away from being an MSP predominantly. We've got those services, obviously. We've got the vCISO services, got everything that a client would require in terms of remediation and help through the process. But we focus on GRC, the governance, risk, and compliance side of it. We focus on the risk management side from vulnerability scanning and so on, but internal scanning. And we really focus on making sure that the client is resilient. Contact us quite easily. It's www.infoprotect.co.uk. We are going through a large rebranding at the moment because of our focus having changed from the MSP world to the cyber resilience or cybersecurity space for the insurance brokers. So that's taking place by the end of April. We have a new brand in place and a new approach, but it doesn't change how we actually performing at the moment.
Understood. Well, I want to make sure to thank you extra, because I hear the night bugs starting to tell you that it's getting into the evening for you, I think there. So I want to be very thankful that you on the back half of your day over there in the UK shared your time with us and joined us for this live podcast. Everybody, if you haven't checked out the Tri-Unity Strategies website, we've got a wonderful events calendar there full of various learning opportunities, whether it be live podcasts like this where you can join and ask your questions, of which we had some that I just completely freaking missed. It was just a thank you, but there that is. Or are other opportunities for you to have your career or business questions answered. Please make sure to check that out, and check out next week, where we'll be welcoming Jason Whitehurst from Future Safe for a conversation more about cybersecurity and focused on where the gaps are in the SMB space. So happy Tuesday, everybody. Brad, thank you again, and have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Zach. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.